So this week's Parsha, the story of Mechiras Yosef draws to a dramatic end, a dramatic climax. In the beginning of the Parsha, when Yosef says, you need to bring Binyamin, Yaakov is shattered, and Yehuda stands up and he talks to Yosef. And he says, no, this cannot be. And Yehuda says, Va'ata, I cannot bear to think what will happen to my father. And he says, Ki avdecho ora v'sanami yamavi, va'ato yeshevnu avdecho tachas anar, eved la'adayni, v'lo yochel Yosef leis apek l'kol hanitzav hamolav. And he breaks down crying. What brought Yosef finally to break down? So 3 weeks, the story is told in great detail. Mechiras Yosef. And so many questions arise. When we learn these parshiyos, kipshutan, Yosef seems to be enjoying tormenting his brothers again and again. What do you want from them? He seems to be taking pleasure in tormenting them. How do we understand Yosef's actions? The Or HaChaim asks another troubling question. Yosef had the means. He was second in power in the empire of the time, Mishnah Melech Mitzrayim. Why didn't he notify his father, I'm alive, Abba, stop mourning, I'm alive and I'm well. He knows his father is broken. He knows how much his father loved him more than all the others. He made no effort to notify his father that he's alive. So the Or HaChaim Kodesh says he didn't want to embarrass his brothers and shame them. Or HaChaim Kodesh is Ruach HaKodesh. But still, I always had difficulty understanding the Or HaChaim. On whom do you need to have more rachmanis? On your old father, the tzaddik, or on your brothers that were the perpetrators? After all, they did something terrible. Threw them into a pit, sold them to Eretz Mitzrayim. Who deserves your mercy more? Your father or your brothers? I always argued maybe a different approach. Yosef knows his father. If he will send a message to his father, I'm alive, and his father will call his brothers, what's the story? And Yaakov will realize what happened. He will be more pained about knowing what actually transpired than thinking that he lost Yosef and Yosef was killed by an animal. Chayaro achlasu. It is just because Yosef cared for his father that he could bring himself to tell his father, I'm alive. Because he wouldn't be there. He can't make up a story. His father will call his brothers and question them. And when Yaakov will realize what his children did to Yosef and to him, his pain will be far greater than thinking Yosef was killed by an animal. And I was so excited to see that the Tosis Harosh says this, and I always teach my Talmidim, appreciate the yashtis and the pashtis of the Rishonim. And today we have Perush Harosh al Torah, and the Rosh asks this question: And a very brief comment that Rosh says, that is why Yosef didn't tell his father what transpired. But how about Yosef's actions? Yosef had Ruach HaKodesh. The way we relate to the Avos HaKdoshim and to the Shvotim, in the modern world, the world of art and literature, the world relates to the Ishei HaTanach as, powerful warriors. And Kosav Rambam, in his introduction to Shisha Sidra Mishnah, and I'm quoting the Rambam, Ma sheyasu Yehoshua v'Pinchas be'inyan hu iyun v'hasvora hu ma sheyasu Ravina v'Rev Ashi. So in the sculptures and in the statues and in the paintings, Ishei HaTanach were half-naked, powerful, muscular people. No. Yoshua ben Nun and Pinchas ben Elazar did the same as Ravina v'Rev Ashi, as Abaya and Rava. Moshe Rabbeinu was first and foremost a teacher of Torah. Yoshua ben Nun was a Rosh Koilel. Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen was a Dayan and a Talmid Chacham, and they all taught Torah. And the Gemara says in Yom Daf Chav Ches, Avraham Zokan v'Yosef b'Yeshiva, Yitzchak Zokan v'Yosef b'Yeshiva, Yankov Zokan v'Yosef b'Yeshiva. Yes, they waged wars, but primarily there were tzaddikim, kedoshim. So the way we relate to Yosef, we need to understand the Pnimius. And my approach, why didn't Yosef tell Yankov he's alive? Yosef is aware that what's happening is not derech hateva. This is a mahalach eloki. These are godly events. Nothing is normal. Yosef knew his brothers. He knew they're all tzaddikim. How could my brothers do this to me? Throw me into a pit? Send me to a distant land? The Rambam writes in Pesha Mishnah at the end of Brochas, Eis lasos Lashem heferus zorosecha. Sometimes the Kodesh Baruch Hu takes away the bechira of a person. When a Kodesh Baruch Hu has a master plan, Kodesh Baruch Hu takes away the bechira of a person. There's no other way for us to understand David and Bathsheba, Yehuda and Tamar. These were the greatest tzaddikim, the Shvotim, and the Avos HaKdoshim. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu has his plan. And Melech HaMoshiach needs to come of David and Bathsheba. Melech HaMoshiach needs to be the offspring of Yehuda and Tamar. That's HaKadosh Baruch Hu's master plan. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes care of events and directs events. And sometimes HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes away the bechira of person, because this is the way it needs to be. From A to Z, from beginning to the end, Yosef realizes, this is not derech hateva. My brothers shouldn't be doing this. And he's sold to Eretz Mitzrayim. He becomes a housekeeper by one of the most powerful people in Mitzrayim. And then the crazy Balabayas is on top of him. He's thrown into the jail, and two Miskinim dream, and Yosef never before was a Poisach Aloimis. But he says, this is Min HaShamayim. Let's give it a shot. Who knows? Maybe this is what a Kodesh Baruch Hu's plan is. He tries his hand in Pisach Aloimis. It works. And then the crazy king has a bad dream, and he's brought out of jail, and he tries again, and woe and behold, new talent he never knew that he possessed, Poisach Aloimis. Yosef understands this is not derech hateva, and you don't interfere with HaKadosh Baruch Hu's plans. Yosef is like on a chessboard, a little pawn on the chessboard, and it's obvious to him, this is something far greater than me and my brothers. And when a Kodesh Baruch Hu takes charge, you don't mess things up. So Yosef does nothing. He just goes with it, with the Kodesh Baruch Hu's plans. He thinks, I could mess up things. I can't know my father. He just waits to see what's the Kodesh Baruch Hu's plan. Yosef knows Baruch HaKodesh, the terrible price Klal Yisrael will pay for Mechiras Yosef. Chazal say that Asora Harugei Malchus were because of Mechiras Yosef. And Yosef knows if he won't bring his brothers to Tikkun and Shuv Shalema, the price Klal Yisrael will pay will be unbearable, unthinkable. Yosef understands it is his duty to be metaken the Chet of Mechiras Yosef. In last week's parasha, when the Shvotim find themselves in custody and they start to make a cheshbon nefesh, v'yoimru ish Elochiv, aval Hashem em anachanu, alochinu, asher oinu tzoros nafshoi v'schanenu yaleinu, v'lo shamanu, al ken bo aleinu atzoro hazois. The brothers start making a cheshbon nefesh, and they say, and they also begin to realize something big is happening here. Hashem amenachnu, alachinu, asher oinu tzoros nafshoi v'schanenu yaleinu v'lo shamanu. Is that all? You didn't hear him cry? You did it. You sold him. You threw him into the pit. But the real hate is he cried. And we didn't listen. He's our brother. And he was crying out to us, and we were deaf. We refused to listen. Ro'inu b'tzoros nafshei v'schanenu yaleinu v'lo shamanu. That is aim kol achatos. Yosef knows this is for him to fix. And Yosef goes against his teva, and his heart is broken to pieces. His neshama is torn to shreds. To pain his father, to pain his brothers, but he knows this is my duty. I need to bring my brothers to a tikkun. When does he finally break down? When Yehuda says, my brother is the culprit. Yehuda is convinced that Binyamin stole that cup. It is obvious. Yehuda is convinced Binyamin stole that cup. He is the thief. He committed this crime. He should be paying for it. But Yehuda is willing to pay the price instead of his brother. And he says, Yeshivnu avdechu tachas anar, v'anar yal im echov. He's my brother. He's my brother. And Yaakov is my father. And I cannot bear to see my father's pain. And I cannot bear and live with the feeling that I was the one that brought my brother. I am willing to pay the price. And I am willing to live out my life in slavery and in bondage to salvage my brother who committed a crime. That is when Yosef knows, Higati. I have achieved my goal. I brought brotherhood. I brought Achva back to the family. And that was the tikkun on Mechiras Yosef. And that is the moment when Yosef could stand it no longer. And he breaks down crying and he says, Ani Yosef, ha'oid ohi chai. That is the way I understand this saga, and that is why I think we need to learn this entire parsha of Mechiras Yosef. Why Yosef didn't intervene? Why didn't he take action? Why didn't he turn to his father? And why did he torment his brothers? And when did he finally break down crying and say, I could take this no longer? Ani Yosef. So that is my mahalach to understand this parsha. And it is all about ahavas achim and caring for your brother. So last week was my father's yortzeit, as I said last week, and I spoke about my father many times this week. So when I visited Auschwitz 16 years ago, and my father came back after 65 years, and he was with me in a group of Balabatim in Auschwitz, my father said, when he stood at the train station in Birkenau, the last words I heard from my father was, Moshe, kick the chim of dana bridalach. Because his parents and grandparents, 5 youngest siblings were sent to the gas chambers. My father and 2 brothers were sent to life. The last words his father told him, my Zaidi told my father, watch over your brothers. And I think my father took those words not only literally, watch over your 2 younger brothers, but care for your brothers. And my father dedicated his life for Klal Yisrael. He was a great asken, besides being a great Talmud Chacham. He was the Klosenberg Rebbe's right-hand man in all his endeavors, in all the great things, whether it was Kotel Shas and the Laniada Hospital. So those were the last words my father heard from his father before they were torn away in Auschwitz. Look after your brothers. And that is what Yosef wants to achieve when Yehuda finally says, Ki avdacha orev esanar, Yeshiv nu avdachu tachas anar. And Yosef knows that is the tikkun. I have achieved what I needed to achieve. And then, so this is something we need to learn from this parsha. We should share b'seres toivus, v'shenazker b'schus avos, beglal avos, t'shia bonim, v'savi geula levnei b'neiim. We should see Yeshua's Yisrael b'meiru v'yomeinu. Amen.